Okay, you're right, we're back with Cassie, this time looking at one of the more complicated sets of rules, the aerofoil rules. So in our rule set, it's set number 6, it's on page 5, and there's quite a few rules about the aerofoil, and checking these can be a bit challenging, so this video will hopefully show you some tricks about checking your aerofoil. The first one's pretty simple. The whole of the front aerofoil, when viewed from the side, must be in front of the center line of the front axle. What does that mean? Let's look from the side. And let's go to sketch 7 because that's one of our side sketches, and let's edit that sketch. Let's bring that back. I don't know why it always disappears. But here are our axle holes. There's one axle hole there, one axle hole there. A lot of the rules are about the center line of the axle holes. What that means is that there needs to be some lines through the center of that axle hole. So let's just draw a line vertically up through there. There's one. It disappeared. Let's try that again. And let's draw another one on this side as well. Maybe the cut down just a touch first. Now don't worry too much if they're not going exactly through the center line now. We can fix that in a second. So let's just draw those two lines. We can do some constraints now, so we can actually constrain. Let's zoom in a little bit. Zoom a bit too far. We can constrain that this line must go through the center. Okay. Oh, too far in. And that this line must also go through the center. So there we go. We've got two center lines. So let's just see how it is. So first thing we need to make sure is that our let's just cut edges. Our front aerofoil is in front of the center line, which it is. And our back aerofoil must be behind the center line, which, well, you can decide is that behind or not behind the center line. Let's go back to the rules again. Okay, the front aerofoil must be connected only to the nose cone. Now, what the nose cone is anything in front of this center line is considered nose cone. So that means our front aerofoil can't be connected to anything behind that center line. Obviously, our front aerofoil is only connected to the nose cone, so that's not a problem in this particular case. The whole of the rear aerofoil when viewed from the side must be higher than the highest point of the rear wheel. Now let's just go back to not projecting that. We might even just finish that sketch just temporarily. It's quite clear that I think our rear aerofoil is higher than the back wheel, so I don't think we've got any problem about that. Now the front aerofoil must have a clear airspace envelope fully surrounding it at a minimum of 3.5 millimeters thick, measured normal to the pressure and suction surface for the full span. Basically it means we need a 3.5 millimeter clearance all around our front aerofoil, and if your aerofoil is a complicated shape, checking that can be a bit tricky, but I've been playing with this for a while and I think I've found a solution to checking that front aerofoil. What we're going to do to check that is we're going to do a sketch on our front aerofoil. So we're going to click on that. Let's just do a new sketch on that front aerofoil. We might just zoom in a little bit on that front aerofoil. What we're going to do is do project geometry. We're going to project that geometry and that geometry so we actually see the shape, that full shape of the front aerofoil. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to copy that shape. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hold down Shift on the keyboard. Is it going to let me do that? No, it's not going to let me do that today. No, not copy. Hold down Control. So I click on each line, then hold down Control while I click on the lines. Now, you might want to zoom in a little bit here because there's some little tiny lines in there you want to click on. Zooming back out again, I want to move that towards the center again. Hold down Control again, zoom in. It might take a few goes to get this exactly right. And then I think once I've got that, that's that entire surface covered. So now I've selected those things. I'm actually going to copy them. So I'm going to press Control C on the keyboard for copy and then Control V for paste. And I've actually made a copy of that entire shape, which is going to be pretty handy in just a second. What I'm going to do now though is I'm just going to, I don't want to see those projected surfaces anymore, so I'm going to come back here down the bottom to where it says, for me it's sketch 28, you could use something else for you, it's the active sketch anyway. And if you click that little box that says projected loop, I'm actually going to delete those projected loops. I don't want to see them anymore, they've served their purpose. I just want to see that lovely shape which I've outlined just there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to highlight that new shape. I've got some straggling lines, hold on. I must have, when I did that mistake at the start, let's get rid of those. They shouldn't be there. Go away, good. I'm going to highlight that new shape we've got. Make sure I do the whole shape, not leaving any bits behind. and I'm going to move that, so I'm just going to click that and drag it down so it's overlapping spot on where our front aerofoil is. Beautiful. So that's the shape of the front aerofoil right now, but it's got to have a 3mm clearance all around it. So how I'm going to do that is this thing called offset. I'm going to offset that shape. So now I've highlighted the whole shape. I'm going to click offset, and I should be able to drag that out to 3.5mm. Not only got that front surface, that's okay, I can do it for the back as well. So now I'm just going to do the same thing for that back surface. Click on that, and once again 3.5mm, and that's that entire shape around there. So that's our 3.5mm window around our front aerofoil, and there can be nothing in that window, and you can decide whether or not there is something inside that window whether that needs to be fixed. So I'm going to finish that sketch off. So that's one of the trickier rules to check. Let's see, what other rules have we got? The rear airfoil must have a clear airspace around it of 3.5mm as well. This is a bit of an easy one because we actually drew the back airfoil ourselves. What we're going to do now is go to, for me, it's sketch 7, whichever sketch has our rear aerofoil in it. So I'm going to sketch 7, I'm going to edit that sketch, so right click and edit sketch. Once again, the picture disappears for some unknown reason. I'm going to do that thing where I project, I'll show the cut surfaces, because now I can see my entire rear aerofoil. So what I want to do is, once again, I want to offset the entire rear aerofoil 3.5mm to see if there's anything in that region, and I don't think there is. I can't see anything at all in that region around there. Maybe there is if you're on your diagram, but where it intersects with the body, that's okay. There's nothing else in the way in that 3.5mm region. So we can just finish that sketch now as well. And I might want to view sketch 7 so I can see that. So let's go visibility, and that shows me that 3.5mm clearance zone. The only thing it connects with is the body of the car, and that's fine. There's nothing on the outside touching inside that region. Alright, what's the next rule we've got? Alright, aerofoil chords. Now these aerofoils have a minimum and maximum possible size. Horizontally, they've got a minimum size. You can make them as long horizontally as you like, but in the vertical direction, they've got a minimum and maximum. So if we look here, we'll go to spans in a minute, but the chords, as I mentioned up here, for both airfoils, this says front, but it's also true for the rear. The chord has to be a minimum of 15mm, but in terms of thickness, it's a minimum of 3.5 and a maximum of 12. And for the nationals, it's also a maximum of 9, so you might want to think about that as well. And there's this thing called the span of the front airfoil as well. We might even look at the span first. That's pretty easy to look at the span. What we want to do is look on the, let's see, not the XY plane. We want to look, for me, it's on the XZ plane. We might do a new sketch on the XZ plane. Basically, it means that the span, or the width of the aerofoils, has to be bigger than 34mm. So what I might do is just draw a little rectangle. Now I know the chord, or the minimum thickness, has to be 15mm, so I might make that 15mm, and that 34mm, and that's basically from the top the minimum possible aerofoil size. Now I can press escape on the keyboard, I can highlight that, and then I should be able to drag it across, and I'm pretty sure that fits inside our aerofoil. There's no way aerofoils are too small, but if you're designing your own, you might want to do that as a check to make sure they're not too small. So that's fine. I'm happy with the aerofoils in that direction. Let's go back to this chord idea. Let's see what a chord means. So here's a picture showing the chord. This is the minimum possible chord. It's going to be 15mm long and 3.5mm high. That's the absolute minimum size of the aerofoils, but 12mm high is the maximum, but you can make it as long as you like. So let's draw these up now and see if our aerofoils match up to that. So what I might do is go back to that sketch 7 where a lot of our aerofoil designs were done. I'm going to edit that sketch again. Once again, it runs away from us. We've got to track that down again for some reason. I want to look at those cut edges as well. I might zoom in just a touch. So what I want to do is draw a picture of that minimum chord so I can see if that matches our diagram. So I'm going to draw a line. Now the whole thing's got to be 15mm long, but it's going to have some curved edges, so I'm going to make it 11.5mm long. I'm going to draw another line, press escape, sorry. I'm going to draw another line directly underneath that. Once again, 11.5mm long. Check, disappear, let's try that again. Alright, I'm going to join that with some arcs. I'm going to make them tangent arcs. So from here to here, and from here to here, just to make sure they're constrained as tangents. I'm going to click on that just to make sure they are tangents. That one is, that's fine. This one, no, that one needs to be checked. That one needs to be checked. And that one's already fine. Okay, so that's 11.5 millimeters long, and then if I make it, let's see, 3.5 millimeters apart, okay, that means that radius plus that radius there will be 3.5 millimeters, and 11.5 plus 3.5 total makes our 15 millimeters. That whole length from the tip there to the tip there is 15 millimeters, and that there is our minimum possible size for an aerofoil. So let's just zoom in a bit more. I'm going to draw a few rectangles now because the maximum height is 12 and for the nationals the maximum height is 9. So I'm going to start a rectangle right at that corner just there where those two lines appear. And I'll draw the rectangle right over to here. So it's going to be 15 millimeters long, and the height for this one is going to be 9 because that's the maximum height for aerofoils in the nationals. Draw another rectangle now right on top of it again. This time with 15, that's fine, but the height is going to be 12 this time. So that represents the maximum height of an aerofoil in our regional competitions. So I press escape again. I might just zoom out a little bit so I can see. Now what I want to do is just press escape. I want to highlight that and just drag that down to our aerofoil and put that right at the bottom there. And look, I'm pretty sure you can agree with me that we definitely are bigger than that minimum size of that little tiny chord there. But we also want to make sure our aerofoil is no bigger than the maximum size or maximum height. We can make the aerofoil as long as we want, length across this way in the X direction is no problem, but in this Y direction we've got to make sure it's less than 12. So you've got to decide, is our front aerofoil the right size or the wrong size, and how can we fix that? I'm just going to press undo to bring that back there, so I'm going to drag that across again. So I'm going to highlight that again. I'm going to drag that right back to our back aerofoil now. To have a look over there, press escape, click on the hand. If I can, let's drag that across, zoom in a touch, escape again. So just want to highlight that, and let's drag that down. Don't forget that inside drawing there is our back aerofoil. That outside one is just that 3.5 millimeter extras. So I'm going to put that at the bottom of our back aerofoil. And don't forget, this shape here I'm highlighting is our back aerofoil. So once again, it's bigger than the minimum chord, so that's fine. It can be as long as it's like, but it's fine. But we can't make it any taller than 12 millimeters. So you've got to ask yourself, is anywhere along there our back aerofoil bigger than 12 millimeters or not? I was going to move that back out of the way again up there. Okay, so we've checked the span, we've checked the minimum chord. What else we've got to check about the aerofoils? Another little rule here is the bottom surface of the rear wing must be higher than 34 millimeters above the track surface. So that's one last thing we can check. We'll go back to sketch 7 again, our favorite little sketch at the moment. Get a sketch, bring it back from its disappearing position. We'll show the cut edges. We've just got to make sure that it's more than 34 millimeters above the track surface. So I'm going to draw a rectangle from the bottom of our aerofoil. Width doesn't matter, but I've got to make sure it's 34 millimeters. And that has to be above the track surface, and it's clearly above the track surface. I can just finish that sketch. I could even go back here and this work plane, I could make that visible again. Okay, then go back to sketch 7. Look at those cut edges again. Find sketch 7 again. Little surface disappear. Let's see if we can find that surface again. That surface is gone. But anyway, it's clear that that's definitely going to be above the track surface, and that's all our issues about our aerofoils done.